Welcome everyone to Get Noticed, how to create a great recruiter-friendly resume and LinkedIn profile. I'm Shira Lotzar, happy to be your host today. And we're going to go ahead and jump right on in. So my question to start off with is going to have to do with really understanding what is going on in this employer world, right? So when you think about what's going on with recruiters and with employers, my question is going to be as follows. What do you believe employers are looking for in your resume and in your LinkedIn profile? I'm just going to open this up to the chat, or you can just actually open up your voice. What do you think's going on?
They're looking for you to match their job description.
Yep.
I was going to say keywords.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And broader than that, what are they looking for?
By branding or something?
Mm-hmm. Keep going. What do you mean by branding?
Your skills.
Your skills. Yep.
Oh, yeah, you are right. But LinkedIn could be like a network, and LinkedIn may able to have some like a recommendations.
Recommendations are important. At the highest level, what do you think employers are looking for? Why are employers looking for you at all?
Brief summary.
Okay, so here's their why, right? They're looking to understand how you can solve their business challenges, okay? Your resume and your LinkedIn profile is not really about you. You think it's about you, but it's not really about you. It's about how you can solve their challenges, because employers are risk averse, and that's very important to understand. You know, people will write their resume, they'll write their LinkedIn profile, and they'll put all their skills in, all their accomplishments and all these different things. And they think it's about them selling themselves. But at the end of the day, the person on the other side, the employer, is looking for you to solve their challenges, their business challenges, whatever challenges they have. So it's extremely important that you walk a mile in their shoes. And so there are a couple of things that I want you to think about. So employers are looking at you different ways. Sometimes they are finding you proactively, right? They're looking for you in LinkedIn. Sometimes they do that. They use that search bar in the upper left-hand corner, and they are trying to find you by using all kinds of keywords. However, right, when they do that, you don't know that they're doing that. And so your keywords on your LinkedIn profile are vital. They're not going to even see your resume. All they're going to see is your LinkedIn profile. So your resume almost doesn't matter at that point, but you don't know that they're looking for you. So the headline in your LinkedIn profile is going to be absolutely critical, that you have a brand that is noticeable, that has keywords in there that they can find. Now, of course, you don't know who's looking for you. All you can do is figure out your brand and the kind of employer that you're targeting and the kind of role that you're targeting, and make sure that the keywords are there so that you are findable, if you will. Whereas if you apply to a job online, okay, if you use a job board, you use, you've got keywords, right, going on. If you apply to a job board, Career Builder, LinkedIn's job board, any of those things, the keywords in your resume are going to be vital. If there's a difference. So it's like who's looking for whom. If they are looking for you proactively, they're going to link your LinkedIn profile first. If you, however, applied to a job online because they've posted it, then the keywords in your resume are vital. Why? Because that's the only thing they're using to screen you, which actually is why it is so important not to have most of your job search be on a job board. Why? Because you've got tons of competition, and the only thing they can do to vet you is to look at your resume. All right. And so I say that because networking, this webinar today is not about networking, but I just have to put in a plug for networking. You need to show up before your resume. You do, right? You've got to be that person who, when they have an opportunity, you're already in their network. They're going to be much more flexible. Okay. So actually, I am mentioning it right here. That if you show up before your resume, neither your LinkedIn nor your resume are going to be as crucial. Everybody's going to be a little bit more flexible on both, because then it's like, oh, Kyoko was referred to me. She may not be the perfect fit, but I'm happy to interview her anyway. All right. just because somebody recommended you, right? So I want you to kind of get the different ways that these happen. Either they're going after you on LinkedIn, or you're coming at them from a job board perspective, or you're showing up in the hidden network. You're showing up as a relationship where somebody referred you. Then it's less important what your documents look like. But if you don't happen to show up that way, you go on LinkedIn or resume, these are the two ways that that you're going to be showing up. Okay. So technology has really revolutionized the world of recruiting, as you can imagine, right? Things have been changing. Keyword scanning is really the first line of defense for most employers these days. Okay. Now that is both AI, and I don't just mean recently AI, I mean sort of in general, AI has been used for quite a while, but also including the ATS, the applicant tracking system. That's that very big database that a lot of large employers will use to go find you. And what'll happen is, at the very least, that employer is, or that recruiter really, is typing in some keywords into their ATS to go find you. They have a whole bunch of resumes, right, that are sitting in that database. And so that's actually what's going to screen you first, which is why the keywords are so incredibly important. Now, remember I mentioned that the different ways people find you, they go after you on LinkedIn, you go after them on a job board, you have networking, but there's this other way. If your resume ends up in their applicant tracking system, meaning somehow you have applied through to the company directly. Now, you could have gone through LinkedIn, but sometimes you can go directly to the company. If your resume ends up in that database, the thousands of resumes that are in there, then that recruiter has to find you somehow in the thousands of resumes. And how do they do that? By keywords. And whoever mentioned it early on, those keywords that match the job description, that's what they're looking for. That is why keywords are so incredibly important, and why you absolutely need to customize your resume for every single job. Let me say that again. You absolutely need to customize your resume for every single job. You can no longer just have a generic resume and assume, right, that people are going to just sort of, assume they're going to assume that you're a fit. They'll never assume that. They're not mind readers. They're not mind readers. If you have a resume and they've got a job description and they've got keywords here, and you don't have, how in the world can we expect them to actually understand that you're a fit? You've got to speak in the language that they use. Now, I'm going to be showing you some samples later on of resumes that I do, because I am a career coach and I'm a resume writer, of what I do to help people do that. But that's the point here. It's got to be customizable. Now, once they have those, tools, right? Or well, excuse me, once they have those, those sort of keywords that are fit, then they're going to look for other things. They're going to look for your industry fit, location, your tenure, all these different kinds of things, right? Just to make sure that you're a fit. But you should know, they typically don't screen on soft skills in a resume. Okay? Soft skills are something that you think, oh, I've got to put down, I'm a team player and I'm all organized and all these different things and I'm strategic. And yeah, those things are important, but guess what? It's in your resume, not very. It's the interview where those things actually show up. The interview, okay? So I need you to not waste any real estate in your resume and fill it up with a whole lot of soft skills, because recruiters are just going to blow right by it. They're going to scan through it and they're going to overlook that stuff. What they care first about is, can you do the job? Do you fit the industry, the mission, the sector that they are with, right? That's how you're going to minimize their risk. Now, I did put a little article here in case anybody's interested in AI. I'm going to pop that into the chat bar. If I can get my cursor to work. There you go. So it is a product promotion, what I'm sharing with you, that article, but it's an interesting little article that'll tell you kind of how people are using AI. So your resume and your LinkedIn are like advertising documents. What do I mean by that? Well, Kyoko, I think you mentioned earlier about branding. Okay. Well, it's true. Your resume and LinkedIn are branding documents. And the example I like to give is McDonald's. So McDonald's, we know what McDonald's sells, fast food, right? And it's not necessarily the healthiest food, but they also know that we're in a very health conscious world right now. So what have they done? Some of their advertising has actually focused on the health, right, of their food. Yeah. So here's a little one, right? How to get great fries? Start with great potatoes. So the implication here is that, all these French fries are healthy, which of course they're not. But the point is that they are going after a certain audience. In fact, what audience do you think they're targeting when they do this? Who are they selling to when they mentioned healthy potatoes?
People who are generally healthy, but they want French fries.
Yeah, right. So maybe like, a mom who's got her kids and she's, soccer momming it. And she's like, all right, I got to feed my kids something. Well, psychologically, I can say, it's a potato, right? As opposed to McDonald's has often geared their advertising toward younger people. Well, if they're advertising it to a younger person, this is not the advertising they're going to use, right? It's going to be something that's a little more interesting, a little more fun food, right? Tasty food, rather than the health side. My point is that they know their market, they know their target, they know their customer. You need to know your customer, which is the employer. Okay. It's very, very important that you are very focused when it comes to your resume and your LinkedIn. Okay. So one of the ways that I want to help you do this is by focusing on two different areas, what I'll call your lane and your community. Your lane and your community. What do I mean by that? Your lane is your profession. It's what you do. It's the skills that you bring. Your community is the industry, mission, or sector, right, that you have. In other words, it's knowing the business challenges of that employer. Your lane and your community, they actually are two different things. Most people don't realize that. They kind of mush it all together, but it's not. They're two separate things. So when the employer is looking at your resume and LinkedIn, they're thinking to themselves, can the person do the job? And do they understand our business challenges enough to slide into home base? In other words, where it's going to be a minimal learning curve, they're going to understand the world that we're in. They're going to understand those business challenges. It's hugely important that you think about it that way, because that's how they think about it. You may not. To you, it's your background sort of a mix of this and that. That's not how they're seeing it. So for example, if you are, you're trying to make a career shift, so I put that at the bottom, it's easier to shift one or the other, but not both. Say that again, it's easier to shift one or the other, not both, because employers are risk averse and they don't have time to train. And so what's happening here is that they are looking at one or the other and saying, okay, well, if they don't have the one, maybe the other's okay. I'll give you an example. So years ago, I helped an attorney become a writer. Wanted to totally shift lanes. Well, how do you do that? Well, as attorney, like most attorneys, did a lot of writing. Okay, attorneys do a lot of writing. So in his resume, I pulled out all of his writing skills. Okay, and then what we did was pulled it all out. We wrote a LinkedIn profile that explained his style of writing, why he likes to write, all of these things. He ended up getting a job as a journalist with a legal trade publication. He was able to keep the community, which was the legal community, but shifted the lane to writer, because the employer said, oh gosh, he gets the legal thing, but we're going to trust that he knows how to write, and we're going to allow him to shift. And now he became an English teacher after all these years. So he was able to shift, right, into both, but first he had to do one versus the other. A lot of people try to do both at the same time, and it's very challenging. Okay. And so one of the ways that you can do this is, just using that example that I mentioned with the attorney, is looking at the resume and looking for where you have transferable hard skills, not soft skills, hard skills. Hard skills are your functional skills. It's the things you do. Soft skills are how you do them. So we're not looking at soft skills here. We're looking at hard skills. When you look at this profession, if you are trying to make any sort of shift, what are the hard skills that you bring to the table? Where can you pull them out, right? So are there certain kinds of accomplishment stories that fit this new lane, where you're like, hey, the lane I want to go into is X. I've come from lane Y. What are the skills from lane Y that fit lane X? And how can you pull those out? And I will show you in the resumes in just a little bit where you can do that. But is this making sense? Right? There's the lane and there's the community. It's two different things. So what I am going to do now is do some do some sampling with you. Okay. All right. So go ahead and just pull up some examples. So here's one. You'll sort of see the way that I do resumes. Okay. Okay. So this is what I'm talking about. When you are focusing on your resume and you're trying to do this in a keyword way, I want you to see that in this particular resume, which is actually normally what I do, there isn't a whole lot of extraneous language, right? You don't have all big paragraphs up top explaining soft skills and all these things. I did that just a little bit here, okay? But for the most part, what it is, it's a headline, it's a title, if you will, career headline. So in this case, I put the lane and the community together. I wanted people to see that he's in the association community, which is a sector, it's membership organizations, but he's also an education executive. So what he does, this is his lane, this is his community, okay? It could have been, you know, healthcare marketing leader, whatever. You can put your community next to your lane, and that actually creates, right, this headline. And then you're going to have your keywords that are right here, all right? And the keywords are going to line up with accomplishment stories that are down here. And I want you to notice something. These stories are actually pretty substantive. These are not 1 or 2 lines. You can do this. You can have 3 or 4 lines if you want. However, notice that you've got all of these keywords that are labeling, right? That are labeling all of these accomplishment stories. That is a recruiter-friendly resume. And by the way, it's also highly customizable, okay? So it's very important that you get that this is exactly where you start to customize. You can have a generic standard resume, and I encourage you to. You want to have some sort of standard document. However, when it comes to the specific job, this is where you customize. It's extremely important that you do that. And then also, if you are doing any sort of shifting, what happens here is that these are the kinds of stories that you change. So I want to give you one more example. So there was one time I was working with somebody who was, she was in the advocacy space, like lobbying, that kind of world. And she decided she wanted to go into operations. Now, how do you turn that kind of person into operations? Well, what we did was we created these kinds of accomplishment stories that were all operationally focused, like budget management or technology or staff development, things like that. Those were the only kind of stories that we used, okay? And so what happens is it created this really cohesive, operations-focused resume, right? And then up top, we put, right, operations, you know, she happened to also be in the association world, association operations leader. That's okay to put that as your headline aspirationally. And of course, we couldn't change her, you know, her employer, we couldn't change her title, but we were able to simply have accomplishment stories that fit the brand. We didn't have any accomplishment stories that had anything to do with government relations. They were government relations stories, meaning she did them in the context of government relations and advocacy, but the story itself was a story about budgeting, a story about technology, a story about staff development. It wasn't a story about the PACs that she worked with. Does that make sense? So you've got to think about the stories that are going to align with the new lane and customize so that the employer says, oh, well, of course, the person's got the skills, even though the title is not, or the organization is not aligned. So I want to make sure that you guys are getting this. I want to stop my share for a moment and see if you guys have questions, because I know this is a little bit of a different way of looking at things. What are your questions? Or does this make total sense?
Should you also be doing that on your LinkedIn? Like, I don't think you can't really do that on your LinkedIn because you're not
So here's what you, right. So here, exactly. So here's the tricky part about LinkedIn, because your resume, you obviously can customize job by job, but you can't do that on your LinkedIn. So what you do is in the experience section of LinkedIn, have your accomplishment stories, the ones that you believe fit the brand, okay? However, you leave off the labels. Just leave off the labels, meaning you're going to reserve the labels for the customized resume. So have labels on the resume, but keep your LinkedIn clean. Keep your LinkedIn clean. Does that make sense? So the experience section just has accomplishments, but without the labels. Does that make sense, Diana? Diana, you're on mute.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
How do you see that when you say labels? What was the label in your resume sample? Which part is the labels?
The labels, yeah. So these are the labels right here. Right here. These labels.
Okay, I got it. Okay,
Make sense?
yes.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah, those are I call them skill labels or competency labels. So that's what you don't put those on LinkedIn. You only put the accomplishment story. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So other questions around this concept? Is this resonating? Is this making sense? Stephen, how does it resonate with you?
It's a completely different perspective than I had ever considered, and it
Yeah.
makes total sense.
Yeah.
That's how it resonates.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just kind of like obvious, right? It's like, well, yeah, makes perfect sense. And that's why I keep using this style, because it is very recruiter friendly.
Mhm.
It just is. It just is.
Is
Okay.
there a recommended number of those highlighted achievement? At least
Say,
two or at least
I'm
three
sorry,
or something?
say that one more time, Kiva.
Okay. Do you have a recommended number of highlight completion? Do we need to have at least three or
Right.
something
Sure.
per
That's
job?
that's a great question. So I would say for each job, it depends on how many jobs you have. So for example, if you have 5 jobs on your resume, you don't want your resume to be 5 pages long, right? So I would say 2 or 3 accomplishment stories for each job. But I would go one more level than that. And I would suggest that part of it has to do with how you want to weight your resume. What I mean by weighting is that there are some jobs that are going to be should be more prominent because they're more connected to your brand, or you want to emphasize the job but de-emphasize something else. So maybe for one of the jobs you're going to have 5 stories, and because you really want to emphasize that job, and for maybe another job you're going to have like 1 or maybe 2. So you can kind of shift it. There's no rule, but if you are going to have a lot of stories, only have a lot of stories on your master document, on your general document. You don't want to have 7, 8 stories that you're sending to an employer. That can get a little bit much. You want to customize it a little bit and shorten it, but you can have a lot to start with, but you're going to pull the ones that you need for different jobs. Make sense? Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and give you one more sample here. And this particular person, I did this recently, and I want to show you. I did it and by the way, these are all real people, but sanitized information. So these are not their names and such. You will notice here that I decided to add a little bit of a narrative. And the reason is that for this particular person, I felt like when we did the stories were solid stories, but there was some there was some industry experience that I thought was important for him around, or I should say, skill experience around growth, around software delivery, around financial management, things that would be important because he is going to be shifting into a more senior level operations role. And I also wanted people to know that he's worked with publicly traded global companies and startup companies. So for him, I thought it was important to have a little bit of a summary, but notice it's not huge. It's not huge, just a little, thing. And there's nothing in here the stories about his soft skills other than right here. Oops. Hold on. Other than right up top, a few keywords. That's it. They pop, but they're not baked in there into some sort of hugely long paragraph. It's really, really quick, simple, easy on the eye. People can see it. He's strategic, he's calculated, relationship builder, great. A little bit about his sectoral experience, and then boom, right into his stories. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that. And the last thing I'm going to show you, I'm not sure if anybody here is in the technology field, but I wanted to show you that one as well. And this is a way to do this with technology, folks. Everything is about keywords. Okay. So here you go. This is another way to do this where you can put technical skills right up top. Okay, because that's what recruiters are looking for. Skill. And then same thing, you can still go into, right, the same kind of story. So there's lots of ways to do this, but I think the idea here is that it's got to be clean and easy. Making sense? Okay, great. So now I want to show you what we've got going on for LinkedIn, okay? So with LinkedIn, let me pull up some of my samples here. So LinkedIn is a really interesting thing because you've got a couple different areas going on that recruiters are looking for. They're looking at the headline for sure. They're looking at your experience section, and those almost are like your resume, right? Where they look for keywords. But then there's the about section. And the about section is an overlooked piece of real estate. It just is. People don't even know what to write there, right? They've got, they've got this either like a 3-line bio or it says 25 years of experience or all the, just very generic, very vanilla. It doesn't really say much. Well, there's a way to make it say much, okay? And that's what I want to show you here. This happens to be how I write LinkedIn profiles. This is a style, that I want to offer to you. And it's very compelling. But in order to even write this kind of thing, you have to know your brand. You have to know who you serve, how you serve, why you serve. Notice I'm emphasizing the word service, because that's what I believe work is. Service is not just a paycheck. The problems you solve, right? How you do these things. So I'm going to show you some examples here of what I'm talking about. Okay. And I'm going to, second. So here's one person. And all these people that I'm showing you have provided recommendations on my LinkedIn, so I feel safe in sharing their profile with you because they've acknowledged that we did work together. All right, so oops. So up here, where'd it go? Here, about. So this is a lane person, right? So this is somebody who is in compliance and risk management, right? And so I want to share with you, I'm not sure if it might be a little bit too small print. So I'm going to read to you what we have here. And you're going to see that there's a difference in how most people write LinkedIn profiles. So I wrote this: an ounce of risk mitigation is worth a pound of profit. So I made it a little bit quippy. You don't have to, but it's nice when you can. I believe that the path to sustainable growth is structured growth. As business accelerates, we need to slow our roll to detect hidden in plain sight legal landmines that can deter profitability. Warranties, limitations of liabilities, governing law and jurisdiction, favorable discounting practices, and audit requirements may sound like legalese, but they are the bedrock of business scalability. Bonus, a solid compliance infrastructure can withstand regulatory scrutiny and keep the CEO out of an orange jumpsuit. Okay, so it got a little bit cute. You don't have to do that. Some people's profiles, you want to keep a little more serious, but she allowed me to do a little bit more quip. And then we put tools in her toolkit. In other words, the kinds of skills that she wanted to highlight. So we put down, organizational leadership, and then a little definition, a little bit of color, equipping people to be resilient and resourceful when faced with the unexpected. International compliance, helping businesses efficiently, expeditiously, and profitably operate in foreign theaters. M&A, drilling into our target our target's contract obligations to ensure we're not assuming risk we can't handle, so forth and so on. And then her leadership style, entrepreneurially minded, creative problem solver, simplifier of complexity, and so forth, right? And we put her Gmail at the bottom. Why? Because it's going to be easier for recruiters to contact her, right? Hugely important. If you don't put this, I'm not saying you have to, but if you don't put this, then what happens is employers are going to have to connect with you, wait for you to respond. Maybe you send an in-mail, maybe you're not going to see the in-mail, but if they actually have your email address here, it's going to be a lot easier for them to reach out and find you, right? And make contact. Okay. Want to share with you another one. Oh, I thought I had them all up here. Second. Okay, I want to share another one with you that is going to be in the, what I'll call the career shifter. All right. So this is a guy named Steve Pohorilis. I worked with him a number of years ago, and he had a very interesting story. He has actually allowed me to share this publicly. So here's a guy, I have to tell you the backstory before I share with you the profile. So he was a mortgage banker, and he decided he wanted to shift communities. He wanted to go into something called regenerative medicine, which at the time I'd never heard about, but it's basically stem cell therapy. It's like using your stem cells to help your orthopedic injuries heal naturally. So how in the world do you turn a mortgage banker into something in regenerative medicine? It's not like he's going to go at that age to go, become a physician, right? So what we did was we kept we kept his lane and shifted his community. How? Because as a mortgage banker, it wasn't that he was just doing finance. He was actually a salesperson. So we came up with a creative idea to help to reach out to regenerative medicine medical practices and show them that he could then sell their practice to patients, like basically recruit patients. So he would become a salesperson in recruiting patients, but he would do this for this new sector. And we did a whole thing, not just resume, but the LinkedIn profile. And we created a little business plan, all this stuff. But the point is that this LinkedIn profile is really part of what helped him, because it really proved to somebody that he was serious about making this change. And that's what I want to emphasize to you. Your LinkedIn profile is kind of your proof of what you want to do. People are likely to believe what they read on LinkedIn because you wrote it. So they trust that you are being thoughtful and intentional about what you're writing. So here is what I wrote. Now, this was a little bit longer than normal. It's more paragraphs than I normally do, but I felt like we really needed to tell the story. I know what it's like to live with debilitating pain and have great empathy for those who do. During my recovery from a severe back injury, I realized that traditional treatments can take years to provide relief. Though I eventually recuperated, I wish I knew then of an easier path to help me heal faster. Thankfully, I discovered that regenerative procedures such as PRP, platelet lysis, stem cell treatments, and prolotherapy offer people the opportunity to shorten their rehabilitation period by using their own body tissue to help heal injuries naturally. The benefit of regenerative therapies are cumulative, so they have a better chance to avoid surgery. Now, my passion is to let the world know that it's possible to live a pain-free life. And here's the headline, right? Why am I making this career shift? And you can say that if you want to, because that's right up there. When I was in the mortgage business, I helped my clients realize their dream of homeownership. While I enjoyed this vocation for 25 years, now my desire is to help people realize a new dream, the possibility of faster healing. Most doctors who provide these treatments could benefit from having a boots on the ground brand ambassador to educate people about their life-changing therapies. I believe that as doctors continue to see positive patient outcomes, insurance companies will begin to recognize the benefit of making these procedures more affordable. I look forward to the day when everyone can have access to these alternative forms of pain relief. And then about my sales approach. So first it was all about the community, and now it's about the lane. I relate to people with professionalism, honesty, and integrity. I place my clients' needs above my personal gain. I listen more than I speak, so forth and so on. And then the ask, connect with me if your medical practice could benefit from someone to promote the good work you're doing, or you're living with orthopedic pain and want to be referred to someone who can help. Reach me at Gmail. This making sense? This is another way of thinking about your profile. So again, I want to see if there are questions about this kind of thing. Does this resonate with you? Tell me your thinking.
It seems long.
Well, that particular one was, but the other ones,
The other one seemed a little bit long too. So I come from the train of thought that briefer is better. I mean, it's not proper grammar, but
Right.
so
I'll explain the rationale there. Okay.
Sure.
So first of all, I want to go back to, before I address it broadly, I want to go back. Steve's is not the best example of this because we really did need to have a story. But I'm going to go back to Sandra's. I want to show you it. It's not about the length, it's about the formatting. I want you to see here that everything here is laid out in such a way that it's more easily scannable. And I can show you lots of other ones too, but this is just an example, right? You've got a one-liner, like what I call that mic drop one-liner, okay, that pulls people in. This is going to be a little bit more of an explanation. If somebody is intrigued by line number 1, they might take a little more time to read the paragraph. Again, a nice little kind of, right, pop. And then all of these not only are bulleted, but they're boom, 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 right? They're not big paragraphs. They just, and the point, and even also the leadership style. So it's got a flow to it and it's organized. It's organized. It's not a whole bunch of paragraphs. Again, Steve's was very unusual. I just needed to show you that as a career shifter. But most of the ones that I write are much more like this, where it's you say something meaningful, but you do it in a pithy sort of a way. But here's the broader point, Stephen.
Mhm.
That is this. This is not the first thing that a recruiter is going to look at. The way they scan, emphasis on scan, not read, where they scan these profiles is they start with the headline. Do they like what they see? Pop to the experience section. Do they like what they see? If they like those two things, then they might open up the about section. And if they do, you want to give them something substantive. That helps them to make their decision. In fact, I would say this about the about section. A lot of people will put in kind of a synopsis, like a summary. Oh, I have this many years of this and that and blah, blah, blah. The fact is they can read all of that in your experience section. They don't need your about section for you to kind of recap. What this is, Stephen, this is the answer to tell me about yourself. That
Right.
question in an interview that nobody likes to answer, that's this. You've thought about it in advance. If someone actually has read everything else long enough, scanned it to the point where they want to read something, this is available. But I do not assume that someone's going to read from top to bottom and get to your about section and read through every word. They're only going to do that if they're actually interested in you and take the next step and linger on your profile. Then you're giving something substantive. Does that make sense?
Mhm. It does.
Yeah. So that's the point. But thank you for asking that question. I've gotten that feedback before, and there's actually a philosophy behind it. Yeah. Other thoughts, Kyoko or Diana? Making sense? Thoughts, questions?
Oh, I know, that's one of my to-do list to finish about section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting way of doing it. Okay. So with that, what I'm going to do now is actually, you know what? We haven't heard from Michal. I hope am I pronouncing your name or is it Michael? You're on mute. I'm not sure if you're able to chat.
Hi, it's Michał. Hi, hello.
Hi, nice to meet you. Are you able to come on video?
Yeah, but I'm wait a second. I'm not sure about my background.
Okay,
Yeah, no
hi.
problem.
Nice to
Hi,
meet
hi.
you. It's Michal. So I just want to press pause to see if there are any questions that you have. Is this making sense? Any
Yeah, it's
feedback you have to share?
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. So
Okay.
some set of new information. Yeah,
Okay. All right, good. Just
useful.
want to be helpful. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you an exercise that is going to hopefully help you in understanding more about your lane. Now, this is something that I do when I do career coaching. I will start with this exercise because I feel like this is incredibly important to help people figure out where they want to go and where they don't want to go. Okay, I call this passiontivity. What I'd like you to do is grab a sheet of paper and go ahead and fill this, just label the boxes like that. Just take 30 seconds and then I'll take you through the exercise.
do we need this line too?
Yeah, just actually create, yeah, the 4
Okay.
boxes. Yep,
Oh.
that's important. I mean, just if you could just throw up a hand when you're done. Okay, great. So now I'm going to explain the boxes to you. This is important. So the upper right-hand quadrant is what I call high engagement. So these are skills that you are great at and you love to do. All right. So you give discretionary efforts, what I call a big smiley face emoji. It's things that, you know, skills that if you were given these skills or you proactively sought out, this is going to give you an incredible amount of job fulfillment. Okay. But that's contrasted with stopgap work, a high skill, low motivation. So these are skills that you are perfectly good at. Nobody would deny it. But the truth is that you tolerate this work. You tolerate this work. In other words, you're good at it. You'll do it, but it's not work that you're running after. And it's a very important distinction. It's not that you won't do the work. If somebody asks you to do it, you'll do it. But when it comes to your branding, when it comes to the kind of role that you're looking for, it's very important to, if as much as possible, to try to focus on your areas of high engagement. Not only for your sake, but for the employer's sake. Because again, the employer is risk averse, which means that they want people who are highly engaged. They want people who love this work. They want people who are going to, you know, be extremely productive, that are going to run the extra mile, give that discretionary effort. To the extent that you can align your passions with their business needs, that's going to be a really beautiful marriage. And then thirdly, professional development. Okay. So there are 2 areas of professional development: want to and should. Want to and should. In both cases, these are areas of growth. Okay. Meaning you're not very skilled and you're highly motivated to be stronger. But there is a difference between want to and should. The want to would be what I call the get to, meaning it's going to be skills that you would love to be better at. You'd be excited. You might take a class. You might get a certification. You're just, right? Cheerleading. You're excited to do this. The should is the have to. It's the, well, you know, I've been told that I need to learn how to manage budgets better. I've been told I need to be a better public speaker. I've been told whatever. And you feel like in the stage of your career, you should be better at it, but it's not really exciting you. There is a difference. They're both important, but understand that the want to is going to lead more to your brand, especially if you're going to career shift. But it's going to lead more to your brand. And even in your interviewing, you can actually share that with employers and say, here are the kind of skills that I'm really interested in growing into. These 2 boxes are important. And then finally, disengagement, you want to consider. Low skill, low motivation. So these are skills that you're not good at. You have no desire to be. They completely and totally drain you. In fact, so much so that you don't want any of these skills in your next job. And you're pretty clear about that. This is also, yeah, Stephen.
I said,
Huh?
I have a few of those now.
You got a few of those. Yeah, most people do. Most people do. So it'll help you also to vet the job, to screen opportunities, because if you see a preponderance of those disengagement skills in that job description, that's probably not your job, right? These are ways to think about. This is not only going to help with your branding, it's going to help you to screen opportunities. It's a very, very important skill set. I found it so helpful whenever I do this with my clients. In fact, you know, I'll give you an example. So I did this. I had a client who was in the sort of brand, funny enough, she was in the branding world, like marketing and branding kind of a thing. But she also had a lot of, she happened to have some skills in public relations and communications. So anyway, we did all of our work together. We did the passiontivity. We wrote the resume. We wrote the LinkedIn. We did all the work, right? And then she started looking for a job. And every once in a while, she would toss me a job. And she says, Shira, what do you think of this job? Meaning, the job description. And I'd say to her, well, I said, did you happen to notice that like a good majority of the job is public relations and communications? Guess what, guys? That was in her stopgap work. That was not the kind of work she actually wanted to do. But like most job seekers, she saw what she wanted to see. And I say that because there's a psychological phenomenon that happens when job seekers screen opportunities. I call it bullet number 5 syndrome. or psychologists might call it selective perception. What that means is when you look at a job description, oftentimes your eyes just go right for the bullets that you love and ignore the bullets that you don't. It's almost like you can't even see it. You can't even see those other bullets. So an objective person like me, I'll say, well, did you notice that 5 of those bullets are actually all that stuff that you didn't want to do? She's like, oh, wow, I didn't even notice it. Right? So you have to try to be as objective as possible when you're screening these things, because titles, you can have one title meaning 5 different things. You need to look at that summary. You need to look at the responsibilities. You need to look at the qualifications, and you really, really, really need to read it and say, what do they actually want from me? Then align it with this kind of exercise and say, is what they want me to do what I actually want to do? Of course, there's going to be some bullets you're going to, it's stopgap, and that's okay. But if the preponderance of it fits in your stopgap, it's probably not your right job. And I'll give you one more example from my recruiting life, because I'm not just a career coach, I'm a recruiter too. And years ago, I use this as a recruiting tool, by the way. So any of you here who are hiring managers, you can use this as a recruiting tool. So here's what happened years ago. I was screening somebody, I was vetting candidates for a director of publications job for a nonprofit. Okay, so this person was going to be required to produce journals, produce publications. And her only job responsibility was going to be to produce the journals, just the production, no writing, no editing. Got it? Okay. So I'm screening this person's resume, and on paper, she looked great. I mean, I was like, oh, I was so excited to talk to her. And so I took her through this little exercise. And I said, I'll call her Jennifer. I'll say, Jennifer, so, let's talk about the things you love to do and don't love to do, blah, blah, blah. And what became very clear quickly is that, oh yeah, she enjoyed production. She also really enjoyed writing and editing, like really enjoyed. It was in her high engagement box. So I swallowed hard and I said, okay. So, and I asked it a couple different ways. And I said, so what you're telling me, Jennifer, is that if a job is going to be just production and it's not going to have writing and editing, you're not going to be happy. She goes, that's right. So I very nicely ended the call. I said, great talking to you, but you're not going to be happy in this job, right? Because I knew what the job was, but I also knew what she wanted to do. Now, let's say, guys, that I had never asked her that question. I want you to imagine, take this to its logical conclusion. I never asked her the question. If the only thing I did was say, what are you capable of doing? She would have said, I'm capable of doing production work. And that would be true. But it was because I asked her what she wanted to do that we were able to nicely end the conversation and saved her a whole bunch of time, not to mention the employer. But had I not done that, you know what would have happened? I would have said, oh my gosh, you can do production work. That's wonderful. Blah, 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 blah. Let's pass you on. And she would have gone through interview number 1, maybe interview number 2, maybe even get so far as an offer, not even thinking, she might not even have thought to ask whether there was writing and editing, maybe. And then we get to the time of an offer, and either she figures it out and turns the job down, or worse yet, she takes the job and 3 months later realizes there isn't any writing and editing and she leaves. So I want to help you on as a job seeker to prevent all of that, right? All those headaches for yourself and for them by understanding first, what do you want to do? Secondly, screening the job description so that to see if it's really the right fit. And number 3, then aligning your resume with that position to make sure that there's actually a match there. Does this make sense? It's a logical train of thought. Okay. So we do have a little bit of time here. What I'd like to do is do a little bit of, mini coaching with you guys, even though this isn't a full session, and have you just actually take a few minutes and fill this exercise out. And then because we're a small group, I can go ahead and do some spot coaching. Okay. So why don't you go ahead and take a few minutes? I normally don't time people on this, but I will here. I'm going to give you like 3 minutes, and especially fill out the upper right box and the lower right box, the high engagement and the stopgap. And if you can, at least the lower, and then the lower left, just as a contrast. And then maybe we can do a little coaching.
So the things we put here is hard skills.
Yeah, but thank you for that. And I'm so sorry. I should have actually given you a couple of ground rules. Thank you for that, Kyoko. Yes, I'm looking specifically for hard skills, not soft skills. So I'm looking for things you do, not how you do them, right? So you would put in things like, well, in your case, I think you're in, do I recall, are you in accounting or project management? I can't remember, Kyoko.
I'm financial planning
Finance.
and
Yeah,
analysis.
so for example, financial analysis would go in the box, but you wouldn't say I'm analytical. Okay. Or somebody could say project management, but you're not going to say I'm organized. That makes
What
sense?
about relationship building?
Great. That's a soft skill. That's a soft skill.
Hmm.
Yeah. So you wouldn't put that in there. Although you could, I mean, you could, but I would suggest that if you would only put in relationship building, if it's a really key skill to your overall brand, like I am a relationship builder, then yeah, then I would put it in.
Right, I'm going to keep it in there because I teach and I'm a registered nurse. And so,
That's probably a pretty important, yeah.
yep.
Yep.
This is so interesting. I'm loving this.
Good, I'm glad.
Hmm. All right, let's go ahead and get rolling here. So I'm happy to do a little bit of spot coaching. So I could call on somebody, or if you want to raise your hand and volunteer, it's safe space here. Do remember this call is being recorded, so, but still happy to help. All right, Stephen, do you want to share? So what I'd like you to do to help me to help you is to actually label the boxes for me, okay? Were you able to fill out all 4 or just a couple? I put stuff in all 4.
In all 4, perfect. All right. So let me have you label the boxes as follows. The upper right is A. The bottom right is B. Upper left is C, and bottom left is D. So all I need you to do is state the letter and then read me what you have slowly. I'm just going to take a couple notes and then I can do a little bit of spot coaching with you.
Great. So in A, we have teach, coach, research, and relationships.
Interesting. Okay. What do you have in B?
Managing,
Mm-hmm. What else? Anything?
Mm.
Okay. C.
certification in nursing professional development
And this is a want to or a need to?
under the want to.
Want to, okay.
Yep.
Got it. And do you have any need in there?
Any what?
The need to, oh, sorry, I mean the should. Remember there was a want to and a should,
No, it's no. Mm-mm.
just a need. Okay, and then anything in the D box?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you're like, yeah. What do you have?
I have details,
Okay.
tracking,
Mhm.
and administrative stuff.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, given everything else that you said. I mean, so it's interesting that you earlier said, oh, can I put relationship building in my, in the box? And it's interesting how I even answered the question, because the truth is, it sounds like you are a relationship builder. Like it's a core superpower of yours. It's a gifting that you have, right? So whether you're teaching, whether you're coaching, whatever you're doing, it's relating to people rather than relating to details and relating to administrative work or relating to process. You're not an ops guy, right? You're a people guy. You want to help folks get to the next level in somehow, some way. You are a help, or I mean, I don't mean to be overly simplistic, but just in terms of big, broad categories, there are some people in the world that are very process oriented. Some people in the world are very people oriented. That's a very simple way of saying it, but you clearly fall into the one bucket. Would that be true?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so my question for you, so of course I haven't seen your resume. My question for you is what's the next for you? Are you career shifting? Are you trying to refine it? Are you trying to stay in the same, kind of career path and work your way up? Where are you?
I am going to a different aspect of nursing. So I was a bedside nurse for a long time. I was a nurse educator in academia for about 8 years. Perfect fit. I am now the coordinator of a nurse residency program. There are many parallels between my academic career and what I do in the residency program. And I'm looking to hopefully shift into a process improvement position, which would be under the psychiatric nursing umbrella, which I have 20 years of experience in. But it would also involve implementing processes that would be educating the clinical trainers in psychiatric services.
Yes. So it's if again, being very overly simplistic, it's teacher, right? Educator, if you will. Right. So that's going to be sort of your brain. Actually, Stephen, it just occurred to me. There's another concept I want to give you guys. It's actually related to the reason why I phrased it exactly what I just did. Remember how I gave you guys lane and community? Okay. I want to give you another concept that's also helpful in your branding, especially if you're going to shift at all, but any which way. Here we go. Ready? This is going to sound funny, but it'll make sense in a second. Ing, I-N-G, versus E-R, Ing versus So here's how it goes. Ing is the skill, is the profession. So writing versus writer, event planning, event planner. Okay. So teaching versus educator. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. The reason why I say that, I acknowledge that, Stephen, right now, is because as you're thinking, or as any of you are thinking about your brand, we all have a bunch of ing skills in our profession, things that we do. However, there are certain things that we do that actually are their own profession, where we do it full time.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you kind of, right now, it sounds like you've had a kind of a thoughtful, almost linear path, right? And you're refining it a bit. Well, as you do, be thinking about the part of what you do. So when you are bedside, you're a bedside nurse. Well, that's an unto itself, being a bedside nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously different than being an academic educator. And now you've got the residency educator. And I say that because employers think of it that way. In fact, they typically think of it in terms of a job title, right? It's a job title for them. Like that's the It's what do we call you? What do we call you? Now, I want you to also think about layering the with the community. What do I mean by that? In your case, your is
whatever the educator is. But then you've got the psychiatric piece, which is its own little community. It's like a subset. So when you're framing your brand, Stephen, if you haven't already done this, you want to make sure that you're speaking the language of that community. Because I'm not just talking healthcare. I'm not just talking hospitals. Well, obviously you're in, the healthcare world. I'm talking specific jargon, specific terminology that aligns with the business challenges that the psychiatric wards need you to help solve, that the residency folks need you to help solve, meaning you need to speak in a way they can hear. So when you're framing things, frame it in a way that they need. Now, I'm going to give you a parallel example. So the guy that I showed you earlier, the operations leader that had the global background. Okay. Well, as it happens, funny enough, he's a relationship builder too. Now, he's an OPSI person. He was a project management person, PMP, all this stuff. And those folks don't always have like super deluxe relationships. He really, really cares for his people. Okay. And so we wanted to make sure that that came out. It came out in his resume. It came out in his LinkedIn. It's going to come out in his interviews. And I said to him, you've really got to emphasize this because it's a superpower. It's something that employers really need to know about people who do what you do. Because he's not just any old, I can manage our project. He puts his heart into it. He mentors people. He coaches people. He grooms people. People want to follow him. And I think that's important for you to emphasize you're not just an educator. You've got these relationship building coaching skills. Oh, and by the way, you have this community expertise. Put all of that together. And guess what, Stephen? If you brand yourself in the right way, hopefully there'll be truth in advertising, which means that the employer that vets you is like, I know what I'm getting in Stephen. And hopefully that's what they actually want. If they don't want that, it's not your job. It's not the right job for you if you can't be who you're designed to be to solve the problems that you want to solve. Does that make sense? So that's part of why this branding is so important, because you get to know yourself and say, what are the divinely given gifts that I have to offer to these people? And is that actually what they need to solve their business challenges? Making sense?
Oh, this is wonderful. Yeah. Very affirming.
Yeah. Because it really is a marriage. My tagline of my company is, for every hire, there is a higher purpose. And I believe that. I really, really do. I believe we're all called to serve. We're all called to love people through service and through purpose-driven work, right? And understanding that you've got that purpose side, well, so does the employer. When we can actually find a beautiful marriage there, right? Good stuff happens. Yeah, good. Well, hopefully that was helpful, Stephen.
Very. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Diana, let me, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said you'll be hearing more from me.
Okay, sure. My pleasure. Diana, you want to share a little bit about your exercise passiontivity?
Sure. So my A is sourcing hotels and venues, contract negotiation.
Actually, you know what? I'm so sorry. I wasn't quick on the draw here. I need to
Okay.
I have to
Sorry.
I have to take notes. Give me 1 second. So sorry. So A, so did you fill them all out?
Yes.
Okay, great. So go ahead with your A.
A is sourcing hotels and venues,
I got it.
contract negotiation,
Uh-huh.
site visits,
Yep.
travel,
Yep.
logistics,
Yep.
on-site management.
All right. And B.
B is managing registration,
Mm-hmm.
budget management,
Yep.
and marketing.
Yep.
C is want to AI,
Mm-hmm.
and should is social media, or need to, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then D is sponsorships, on-site registration, and managing staff.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because you and Stephen have something in common, because you clearly have even though
I happen to know like a little bit about your world, so I can say this. I think that there is something about your relationship building as well, Diana,
Mhm.
right?
Yes,
Um,
yes, with hotels, yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Sourcing hotels and venues and contract negotiations, as well as even site visits. There's a lot of relationship building in that. I mean, you cannot do that just by knowing how to do a BEO, right?
Right.
You got to know how to build that relationship. And yet the registration, the budget, the marketing, the sponsorships, it's a little more transactional, like, right?
Mhm.
It's logistical, right?
Mhm.
So I can see why you, right, said what you said. Now, my question for you, and I remember you were on one of my Friday morning calls, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I kind of remember so are you like with a Helms Briscoe kind of a company, or are you
No, I work
you're
for
a
a
meeting planner?
nonprofit.
A
Yeah,
nonprofit. Okay.
I'm a meeting planner for a
A meeting.
nonprofit.
Okay. Got it. Are you looking to stay and just continue to be an
No.
event planner? No. What are you,
No,
what are
I
you,
do want to be an event planner, but not for nonprofits anymore.
right? You want to go to the corporate side?
Yeah.
And that would be actually working for a corporation who has a big event planning department, or working for like an event planning, like firm, right? That has multiple clients, like an agency that has multiple
I
clients.
would prefer to work for a company that has an event planning team.
Team. Got it.
Yeah.
So they're doing trade shows, they're doing whatever. They're out
Right.
there. Okay.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Well, look, do you feel like, of course, I haven't seen your resume, but do you feel like the kind of work that the accomplishments that you have had directly translate to the kind of opportunities that you're looking for? Do you think that there's an actual parallel there?
Yes. However, I'm dealing with like my current position. My title doesn't reflect what I'm doing. This organization had never had an event planner,
Oh, I see.
and they don't value it, and they're like pigeonholing me into the titles that fit their organization, so everybody is, the same across the board or whatever.
You're not alone with that. Is it safe to say that a good majority of your job is event planning? Like you really are an
Yes.
event planner, you're just not
Yes.
called that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna have a recommendation for you, and I'd like everybody to listen up, because I don't know if this might apply to you in either now or in the future, or feel free to share this with your friends, okay? I'm gonna give you a concept here, but you have to hear the whole concept. Don't throw a rotten tomato at me until I'm done here, okay? Because I
Okay.
want you to know this is a very ethical way of doing it, even though it might not sound like it the first sentence I say.
Okay.
I want you to change your title, but hold on, here's what I mean, okay? I want you to change your title to something that you believe is appropriate. For example, event planner, meeting planner, whatever it is, okay?
Director of events.
Well, and actually, what is your current title? Do you mind me asking?
Senior meetings and events specialist.
Oh, so you actually have a meetings title right now.
Right, but it's bogus. Specialist. That
Oh,
sounds
because
like a
it's too low level. It
coordinator.
sounds like a low level. Yeah. got it.
Yeah.
I understand. Oh, okay. Yours is a little bit trickier. All right, let me tell you what I was gonna say, and then I'm
Okay.
gonna try to modify for you. What I was gonna say, generically speaking, and this was actually my comment, is that you have to keep it at the right level, because you can't
Inflate it.
you can't uplift the title part, the director manager thing, because that
Okay.
you can't. What you can do though is you can change the other piece. So again, this isn't exactly your situation, but let's just say I'm making this up. Let's pretend that your title was like, program manager or something generic, right? But you actually were an event planner. You could
Right.
actually say event planner, but here's the thing. This is the thing that makes it ethical. You change it to event planner, you put a little asterisk.
Mhm.
And then at the bottom of the job description in small type, like a 10-point, you would say official internal title was program manager. So it's legal, it's official, it's on the document, but you're basically saying, hey, world, this is really what I was, even though this is officially what I was called. Because you're like, even the government, for example, they'll say like something administrator number 2, like what?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. But that's how you get around that. Now, in your case, it is a little tricky, right? Because specialist, you're right, is a lower level title and you're doing more senior level work. I think actually in your case, you could say event planner, because it's not manager of event, not director of events, just event planner.
That's
Okay.
to me, that's an appropriate title. It's a
Right.
career
Yes.
title, if you will, rather than a title. And
Right.
then I would say at the bottom, again, the asterisk, official internal title, senior, whatever it is, meetings. It's
Mm-hmm.
called senior meeting specialist.
Senior meetings and events specialist.
That's it. Because I think your employer is thinking that by putting the term senior, that they're
Mhm.
elevating you. But the word
Right.
specialist is almost,
Right. It's an
counterbalances that.
oxymoron.
So I think you just put it in your the small type and just save it.
Okay. And do I put that on LinkedIn as well as on my resume?
That's interesting. Are you doing a confidential search?
Yes.
Yeah. I have to think about this for a second. It's not an obvious response. You could,
Mhm.
because that is actually what you do. You are an event
Right.
planner. And you would
Right.
and what you would do is in the description,
Mhm.
there's the title, right? Description,
Right.
first line. Don't wait till the bottom.
Okay.
First line, and just say, serve as, or hired as senior meetings, specialist,
Okay.
or the blah, blah organization. And I do
Okay.
Okay. Cause you are an event planner. Like
Right.
nobody would deny that. That is what you do.
Right. And then on the resume, I put that asterisk at
At
the
the
end
bottom.
of that job.
Yep.
Okay.
That's right. But as long as you're really clear on LinkedIn, boom, don't hide it. Don't bury
Right.
it. First
Right.
line, so that anybody, if your employer ever sees it, they're going to say, oh, okay, it's legit.
Right. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Kyoko, do you want to share what
Sure.
you got?
Okay, thank you. So the A, business cases, especially for new business development. Can you hear me?
Yes. Let me just, okay. So your A box, did you say is business development?
Business cases. No, business cases meaning I do financial cost and benefit analysis, especially for new businesses, whether to start business or whether to buy new equipment, those kind of things. I really enjoy it. And I'm also, yeah, of course, budgeting, forecasting, financial planning, and the strategic planning, everything about finance and operational analysis. I really like to understand business and of course, yeah, staff development. I enjoy coaching, mentoring people I work with.
Right.
That was A. B,
Mm-hmm.
more accounting type of work. I have all the knowledge. I have all the knowledge about accounting, but
Yeah.
I know I'm more decision support finance
Sure.
person rather
Sure.
than every
Sure.
month.
Right.
Yeah,
Got
that's
it.
B.
Uh-huh.
C, well, wants to part. I like to learn GPT.
Chat GPT? Sure. Got it.
And the project management.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. A, I put project management too. I can manage project, but I don't have those
Got it.
official
Right,
qualifications.
right. Got it. Okay.
Then should means I put Excel. I'm advanced in Excel, but always I need to brush up my Excel skills
Sure.
for my job.
Sure.
And especially business intelligence. Nowadays, they call it business intelligence.
Got it.
Manipulate data. Then wants to, I want to add those people management training.
And that, and should?
No, that was, I put it, wants to. I had those training at my last job, but I know it's always good to
Sure.
develop.
Okay.
So B,
Mm-hmm.
system implementation.
Did you say system implementation?
Yes, like some job description. Sometimes I see like, this job is to implement a new financial system.
Yeah.
Or really for
Got it. Yeah, which makes sense when I think about your B work, right? So, I don't know what what is your most recent title?
It's a financial planning and analysis.
Okay.
Simple.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So you have, you obviously are a strategic thinker. There's no question. You're thinking, you're forecasting, you're budgeting, right? You're making sure that you're moving the organization forward as opposed to being heads down and just counting all the beans, right? It's important for you, I think, when you are branding yourself is to really focus on your A box. Focus on the things that where people understand that you do business, because I'm implied in this is some version of business strategy, right? Because when you do financial analysis, you're thinking about the business alignment as opposed to just counting the beans.
Right.
Yeah. So I really want you to emphasize that because I know that sometimes jobs have finance and accounting.
I agree
You-
with you. Those jobs I haven't applied.
Yeah. I think yours is a pretty straightforward case. But just make sure that when you look at your accomplishment stories, that they're very strategic, that they show how you move the organization forward. Okay, as opposed to any sort of accounting. That's my straightforward advice for you.
Okay. Great. Okay.
Yeah.
I do emphasize one of your example, like a revenue. One of your example shows like a revenue growth or something.
Yeah, exactly. Things like
Yeah.
that. Exactly.
Well, great. Okay, thank
Okay.
you. I know time is up, but
Yeah,
I'm really sorry for the system problem today.
I
But
know. I'm glad we figured it out.
we had a small group. I think we got benefit out of it.
Good. I'm really glad. Well, Kyoko, good to
Thank
see
you very
you.
much. Thank
Hope to
you.
see you on a upcoming Friday morning. And for those of you who are watching this recording, sorry, I'm going to say this to whoever's watching this. On Friday mornings, I offer an open Q&A for job seekers. Kyoko's been part of it. It's called Hire Moment Mastermind. And it's Meetup. The website is meetup.com/hire, which is HIRE -moment-mastermind. So meetup.com/hire-moments-mastermind. We meet every Friday mornings from 9:15 to 10:15 Eastern time. Okay. All right, Kyoko. Good to see you. Have a blessed day and Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.